As part of our inspirational message series, we're going to be exploring the 270 degrees of owl wisdom today. My name is Tracy Anderson.
And I am Joe Courier.
Welcome to the Light and Love Box channel, where you are part of a growing community bringing peace, possibility, and prosperity to help transform our world with light and love.
This month, we are going to be having a conversation about wisdom in all aspects. So we're calling it 270 degrees of owl wisdom. And we'll get to that as to why we are exploring it from that way.
Yeah, so I think a good place to start is, what is wisdom? Like, what is it actually? And
the teacher in me likes the definition.
Yes, so we're not going to take that from you. Let the teacher give the definition.
Well, wisdom is defined as the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. The quality of being wise.
So, I think a lot of times we're constantly, we need wisdom. We're constantly seeking wisdom, and I think our natural tendency is to kind of look outside of ourselves.
Oh, yes.
But really, constantly, we are receiving signs, signals from the universe, and
internal signals.
Yeah, internal signals. Guidance. And it's coming directly to us all the time. And the rune that actually is guiding the Light and Love Box ceremony for August this month, or for this upcoming month, is that it's Ansus. And Ansus is just that. It's the symbol that represents the signals that we receive, and it is very focused on the knowledge and the wisdom that we're receiving from our higher self. It's that knowledge that's coming in from the universe that, whether people realize it or not, we're very, very connected to. Oh. It's just recognizing the things that are coming to us.
And part of that is just slowing down enough to understand that there are signs and signals that we are hearing from universal wisdom, not just our own thinking mind, but to be in a place where we slow down and receive, or at least acknowledge.
Yes. I think we are set up we're so hardwired. Everything is so fast-paced and going at just lightning speed all the time. We've had several talks about the importance of being in the moment, slowing down, and
pausing.
Yes, pausing. Yeah, and Ansus also is that inspiration we feel. Like you'll be doing something and all of a sudden you're inspired, you have an idea, thought. That's communication from our higher self. That's that universal knowledge.
That creative part of us that steps in and say, hey, what if you tried this?
Yeah. And I think it's really interesting that the more open you are to those signals, you become more sensitive. You see them more. It's like things speak to you more frequently.
I call it trusting in the universe. So the more that you acknowledge that, oh, this happened, and because of that I was able to see or do or respond in a certain way, you recognize that you are getting guidance from even the smallest thing. There are those that say that nothing is random in this world. There are no coincidences.
I'm so glad you went there, because that's right where my mind was going. I'm like, we always chalk everything up. Oh, it was a coincidence. This was a coincidence. So that mindset gets you almost like just kind of negating certain things all the time. But if you can stop looking at everything as a coincidence and recognize it more as the sign or the signal that's coming in, and you then follow it up, you take a moment, pause
and either research it, find out, okay, what might this be telling me? take a moment and breathe and say, okay, what does this make me think about? So what is the message for me personally here? But
Right.
what I find interesting is that everything seems to come at the right times. There is one of my very favorite authors, and she does card decks. She's a native Cherokee, and her name is Denise Lynn. And just a couple of days ago, she posted that there were two animals that ended up outside of her front door. And so there was a nest of swallows, and then there was a dead beetle. And she went into, okay, I could have just bypassed that, went through and tried to clean it up, whatever. But she said, I knew that there wasn't anything that was coincidental. And so she then went and explained, okay, when I looked these animal totems up, this animal was providing me with the wisdom of these two things, and it fit in her life. And that's part of what we're trying to say, is that everything has meaning, whether it comes from an animal or a message that you got on your phone or from an outside source. It doesn't matter.
Right.
It's
Right.
all there to help you say, hey, note, take a look.
Yeah, and I think one of the things with the ceremonies that we do every month that are so wonderful is it's giving you an opportunity to slow down,
Yes.
listen, hear, sense what's going on, because it's a natural time of slowing down.
Yes.
So I think the more you do, you're getting into that habit of slow down, listen, see, observe.
It's almost as if you put yourself in a meditative frame, and in that state of mind, you are much more aware of so many things, even though you would think that you would be like going inward and nothing externally would have as much meaning, but it's just the opposite. Yeah, it actually brings you more in tune with not only the internal, but the external and how they interface.
Well, and I think there is also a level of intensity of some of the signals. Sometimes some are real, like, bold and in your face, and some are softer and more gentle. I mean, we just talked about a couple months ago about the white unicorn.
Yes.
That was shocking. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Exactly.
sometimes some of the signs and signals are so
Like-
blatant and obvious. Like, you're like, oh yeah, right there. That was a sign.
Well, and we just a minute ago spoke about everything seems to be so fast paced, and it comes to us so quickly. But at the same time, not only do we expect things to come to us quickly, like instant gratification, but we want it to be loud and clear from outside of ourselves. Neither of those things work. Wisdom is the acknowledgement that there is wisdom that you really need to tap into internally. And this has always been recognized in cultures for eons. So, we've talked about elders, or with wisdom, we talked about elders bring wisdom,
Right.
or omens, or the things that we use like divination tools. But if we go back to the idea of the wisdom of our elders, those are the people that have lived so long. They have seen many things. They no longer are in a place of impulsivity. They know themselves. They know
Right.
outcomes to so many things because they've had all the life experiences. But then think about those that come into this world, and we call those children old souls or wise souls.
Right.
They're already coming. So we have the populations that have gained wisdom over time. We have those that have come in with that wisdom already as part of their knowingness. So then, how do you trust the wisdom? How do you know that this is wisdom, that we call it divine or sacred wisdom? So, I'm thinking about internal wisdom, external wisdom, but always it needs to be coming from that place of where the box comes from, light and love.
Right. Well, and I think too, with practice over time, I think in our culture here specifically, you're taught don't trust your gut.
Right.
You're taught to dismiss those things. So, over time, if you develop a habit of, okay, acknowledging it, it lets you start tapping into that wisdom more when you start acknowledging and releasing that cultural belief that is so ingrained into us.
I think the word I sometimes think about is discernment. To check in with yourself. Is this something that's for me? Is it for someone else? Is this truly wisdom, internal wisdom, or universal wisdom, or is this just my logical brain trying to guide me and so many other things. So it is in that pause that we talked about, that slowing down, that those types of informational pieces come.
Well, and I think you will, when you're actually accessing, whether it's internal wisdom or you have universal wisdom coming, I think overall, in general, that wisdom that is coming in, even in a difficult situation or whatever it is going to bring about light and love into the situation. Right. It's not going to, it may transform something.
Yes, and transformation isn't always easy or simple or comfortable.
Right, but so transformation and destruction are so I don't want those interchanged, because transformation is beautiful. It can be difficult, but it is ultimately beautiful and to the good of all. But when wisdom is destroying something and destroying a person or the situation, you can, that's not true wisdom. That's coming from a different place.
Right. Yeah. And in that case, I wouldn't even call it wisdom.
Right. Yeah. I'm thinking about people, going about their life, and they're going through situations and maybe, something might come in, but it's that discernment of knowing where is it coming from, this response, what then is the
next step.
And if it's leading to destruction, then that was coming from somewhere else.
Right.
Through a lens of trauma or something internal.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It's coming through a different lens or a different filter.
Yeah.
And it's not using the discernment to understand what it is that you need to do in that situation.
Right.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned like divination tools, and I recently read this really interesting article. I wish I could tell you like where I got it, what I was reading. I don't know, but anyway,
like me, you just tap into lots of things.
So much is going on. I don't know where it came from, but anyway, it was really interesting because they were talking about how, like, let's say you take tarot for example, okay. And they were talking about how important it is to actually do readings for yourself, not just going to someone else, having them do a reading for you. Because when you do that, it's allowing you to tap into that internal wisdom, that innate wisdom, our higher self, so that you can discern truth, see the wisdom, and then apply it in your life. And I just thought it was very important to note that you need to tap into that wisdom, even if you're using a tool like that, or I work with runes, those are just tools to help you tap into that wisdom. Now recently I have kind of converted my rune situation where I'm like, okay, the universe has wisdom. Let's see what the universal wisdom looks like. And it's very beautiful what comes out of that, So but
I think too, to just highlight that a little farther, the wisdom and the beauty of the wisdom comes when, if you're using that tool, you trust that whatever comes up, you are going to be able to use in some way to move forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and it does need to come from within because it gives you, I'm going to go back to that word you used, a lens. So it gives you that chance, almost like on a cell phone, if you're taking a picture, you get to scroll, to go in and magnify something and say, oh, that's what it really looks like.
Uh-huh.
And then
Yeah.
you can come back out a little farther.
Yeah.
So you get the opportunity to get the higher perspective or the big perspective, but then you also can, if you're doing it for yourself, tap into, okay, specifically, this might be the point that I need to look at and really magnify that.
Right. Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Let's talk about people.
Okay.
Let's talk about wise people, because throughout the ages, we have recognized that there are phases in human life. Okay, so and I'm going to do this in threes. So everybody universally has birth, life, and death. Those are like 3 life phases. For women, we think about that from birth until a certain point of our age, we are maidens. Once we then become to the point where we've matured and we can procreate, we become a mother. And then beyond that, once we have reached the point where we can focus on things that are bigger and broader than just creating life, we move into a place that has often been termed as a crone, but I really like the idea of the wise woman. So for the feminine, we have those 3 phases, if you will: maiden, mother, crone. But we also have those words, which I don't think are as well known, for the masculine.
Okay.
So when someone is born and from birth until maturity, let's say, a young man is known as a warrior. And then once the impulsivity passes, or the point where they are more responsible for things, and this goes for the mother as well. But in a man's life, that's often be referred to as the king. So you are the warrior, you move into a place of the king, and their word for the elder who is wise, the masculine elder, is often referred to as the sage. And I think that's really beautiful, that we actually can break down a lifetime into the places where we can take wisdom, like the wisdom of a child. It's innocent. It is unhindered by, a lot of times, outside influences. It just comes from that place of joy, or that place of just trusting, because that's what we are in those childhood years. Then we move into that place where we are a mother or a king. And for me, that represents more of the idea of you have responsibilities.
Right. Yeah, that's what I would take away from that too.
Yeah, you need to care for things beyond, you need to care for yourself, but there's so much more. You know, others depend on you, and you may need to make good decisions. But then that beautiful phase at the end, those end years that are the wise woman years, or the sage for the masculine, I love that, because there are, at that point in our life, we no longer have necessarily the day-to-day responsibilities, but we have the time to look at things from a different perspective. We look back on things. I once worked for an intergenerational childcare center. So we had the children who were, 2.5 to 12, but we also had those elders that were there for like daytime care, that they were in a place where they needed someone. And it's so interesting where those 2 populations parallel each other. And yet they can teach each other so much.
Well, I think when you talk about that, it lets you see that you don't discount the wisdom on either end. Correct. Because we're all souls having a human experience.
We're on a journey.
Right. We're on a journey, and this short period of time isn't the only part of that journey.
Right.
And so when children come in, they too are coming from a journey.
Yes.
Right. So they
are wise, and they are bringing wisdom, and they're gathering wisdom. All of those things.
Yeah, exactly. And at the phase of a child, they might not always communicate that, because in this phase of time, yes, they're still a child, but there is wisdom in there, and children, they like to share that wisdom
Yes.
with you, sometimes in a very straightforward way that
Yes, they
really
do.
can actually help set
Yeah.
you on course pretty
That
quickly.
bluntness is
Yeah.
sometimes needed.
Yeah.
And our elders
Uh-huh.
often do the same thing.
Uh-huh.
We talk about as we age, we lose our filter.
Uh-huh.
And people do that on purpose. And sometimes it just happens as part of the aging process.
Right.
I think, again, it just, those two parallels are very similar.
Yeah, the time aspect of this short time that we're in this life, right? I think as people get older too, they see that end coming, and so they're connecting more to that wisdom. They want to get it out to you also.
Yeah.
I don't know, just I feel like that sense of time.
Yeah, they do. That time is ticking.
Yeah,
if you will.
They see it more. And the other thing, as you were talking about, as you're moving into that very beautiful phase of the elder, or the sage or the wise woman, Miles, my husband, he recently did this aura photo. And it was really unique because his aura is, so the left side to the right side, right? Most of the time it's different.
It's very different most of the time.
Your aura is very different, and his is the same on the right and the left.
I
If you
can see that in
yeah,
Miles.
yeah. So if you know Miles, you can appreciate that even more than what I'm about ready to say. But what I almost wonder is, as we move through time and we start transitioning into that, do we move closer to that same on one side as the other, or is it really in general, like with people? But I just, like, I see as we age, like, do we move into a place where we're more balanced, more like you're able to tap into that wisdom
Right.
differently because you're moving into a time of more balance. You've seen more things. I don't know, that's just kind of a thought rolling around in there about how we progress in time and how that energy is reflected, you know?
And I think in many ways that is true. And I think sometimes we all have a different blueprint. Some of us come in with that wisdom and it stays with us our entire life. Some of us have to really learn it along the way. So I think it's just part of the journey experience. Yeah.
So now we get to talk about the owl. Now all of it's going to come together.
Well, and this transitions from human life to animal life, and the wisdom that animal medicine or animal totems or animal messages bring to us. Because this month we actually are featuring wisdom in an animal form, the form of an owl, which I think has been universally, I mean, we talk about the wise old owl.
Right.
Yeah, we've just always associated wisdom with that animal.
Yeah, so a very interesting fact that came up is that the owl's head
Yes.
can go 270 degrees. And so
In each direction.
Yeah, in each
Spin,
direction.
yeah.
So just the sight that they are able to always, always are able to see. And I want to actually read this because it was so beautifully done. But it said, the owl animal wisdom encourages one to seek hidden truths and knowledge, to see in the dark through awakening esoteric, spiritual, and psychic perceptions. The owl is a symbol of wisdom, of seeing beyond any type of deception or perceived darkness. And an owl is a nocturnal animal that's hunting at night. And so to me, that is a very, very powerful statement, that even in those times where it feels very, very dark, there is still wisdom.
Oh, there's huge wisdom.
Yes.
And sometimes I think there's even more wisdom in the darkness. Because if you think about nighttime, so many things are quiet or sleeping. And those that, like the owl and other animals, that is their time of day where they come to life, if you will. They have to be prepared to be fearless, to know that in the dark there isn't anything that they can't face or can't see. And that's part of the wisdom, the hidden messages that are there. And I think wisdom comes from being able as a human being to move beyond fears, to move beyond perceptions of all kinds, perceptions of yourself, of others, of situations, and even just having expectations. If you think something is going to happen and it's not necessarily a positive thing, it probably will.
Right.
Because
right.
that's the perception that we have. Oh, it can only be this. But owl shows us differently.
Right. Right. Yeah. And, I don't know. I think the way that the owl is showing us that we've got to keep our eyes open. We gotta look around. We gotta be aware of everything that's around us. I mean, a head that can move 270 degrees, you are much more
think about
open and aware.
You're seeing everything ahead of you. You're seeing everything behind you. In wisdom, you are actually asking to be shown either what's ahead of you or to be guided by what's come behind you. And I think the owl embodies that.
Absolutely. When we were initially talking about this, you brought up kind of a really interesting, I like math.
And I love numerology and numbers.
Yeah. So, the 270, when you break it down from a numerology standpoint.
And you're adding the 2 plus the 7 plus the 0.
Yep. And then you get 9, and that's actually divine wisdom.
Yeah.
So even from a number standpoint and the abilities and things that we can observe of the owl, it all comes together in this beautiful little
divine messenger.
Yes, exactly.
Full of wisdom for all of us.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Just a little aside story. About a little over a year ago, my husband and I were going to be buying a home. And the very first time we saw it was like at 9:30 in the morning. 9. And we looked at the outside. It was early spring in Michigan, so it was cold. There was snow. There was a line of evergreen trees behind the house. And the first thing that we saw, a white owl.
A white owl?
In front of the trees. And in that moment, Jeff and I looked at each other and we went, this is the place.
Right.
So for us, owl has brought us the wisdom of just, and within 48 hours, the home was ours. So we didn't hesitate. It was like, okay, that's the sign. That's the omen, the signal. And we went with it. And it's just been a joy since.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And we're talking about animals right now, but the same thing, like we have plant wisdom and all that stuff. I've been in a situation where I've really needed wisdom. It's been something that I really needed access to. And I've just been calling out, I need wisdom. I need wisdom to handle this properly. And in our yard right now, there is a bunch of Queen Anne's lace, like abundant. Like there is a lot of Queen Anne's lace, but that is from the plant kingdom.
The queen, who is the wise leader,
Yes.
the benevolent woman who watches over us.
Yes, and when I look out at all the Queen Anne's lace, I feel very blessed to know that when I call out, I'm reminded that the universe is reminding me that it's there. I have wisdom. I have access to that wisdom. Yeah. It's innately in there.
And I think that the kingdoms of the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, they all are there to point us back to look inside.
Yes.
Trust. Here, I am your external messenger without any type of agenda. Mm-hmm. Trust yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And that is a very beautiful, beautiful message.
Well, thank you. Thanks for this conversation, Tracy.
Yes. And, we invite any of you who wish to kind of dig deeper and join us in our monthly ceremonies. You can visit the link below to Light and Love Box, and there's where you can subscribe. And, these monthly energy-based ceremonies are all designed to kind of help us focus our true intentions to manifest our best life while healing our spirit, soul, mind, and body.
Which is the journey that we are all on.
Yes.
So we again invite you to subscribe to the channel. Click the notification bell so you can be notified when new content is released, this and more. And just remember, we are a community fostering that peace, that possibility and prosperity for everyone individually and for ourselves and for so much more beyond for our world.
Yes.
Yes. Thanks.
Thank you.